All right. Again, this is going to be more Algebra 1 review with a little twist of Algebra 2 with the interval notations, right? All right. Functions. What's a relation? So does everybody know what a function is? All right. Everybody remember that the input values in a function are what values? The input values are which ones?
The ones that can have
the x values. Okay. There are a lot of different names for these. The most common are going to be input values, x values. Your science class uses what? Independent variables, right? Independent. Okay, independent variables. With that said, what do you think the output values are going to be? Y values. Well, you guys are top of things today. Or, as your science class would call them, dependent values. Because in science, they do a lot of experiments where they choose the value for x, they plug it into whatever their hypothesis is, and out comes y. So the y is dependent on what you choose for x. Does anybody know the definitions of a relation? A relationship. Just mathematically, it's a set of pairs. See, get it? Relation, set of pairs. Two people, right? But in math, it's what? Not pairs of people. Your x values. Language. Or your input values or your independent variables. And your y values. Or output. What's the domain? X values. What's your range? Y values. And does anybody know the definition of a function? For every input. This is really important, okay? I would say 3/4 of Algebra 2 year, you're dealing with functions and the transitions of functions. For every input, so for every x value, right? There is exactly one output value or y value. Okay. There are 4 different ways to represent these. Do you remember from Algebra 1? Huh? Graphs. Graphs, the 2-column things, doohickeys. Okay, so that 2-column thing is called, we used to call them T-charts. I think they just put them in chart form now. Chart. I'm going to put a little T up there because that's the olden days. Graphs, chart. What are these? What are these? They're mapping graphs, right? And there's one more. How about just a set of points? Okay, 4 ways where you have your X, all your set of points there, X, Y, X, Y, X, Y. Okay, example 1, they're giving us mapping graphs. Mapping graphs are pretty easy to see if something is a function or not. And number 1, is this a function? Well, let's think about this. The definition is, for every input, there's exactly 1 output. So my input is -3. Does it have exactly 1 output? Yes. Here I have the number 1. Does it have exactly 1 output? No. So this is not a function. Let's do number 2. -3, does it have exactly 1 output? Yes. Does this X have exactly 1 Y? Yes. This X value number 1 has exactly 1 Y value number 1. Does this 3 have exactly 1 Y value? Yes. Does this 4 have exactly 1 Y value? Yes. So this is a function. Now, notice the difference here. This X, the number 1, has 2 values in the output, 2 Y values. These X's, although they have the same Y value, there's only 1 assigned to them. Now, there's a couple of easy ways to see this. I think one of the easiest ways is to make your T-chart. I'm going to make my T-chart vertical. Okay, my X values here, -3, 1, 3, 4. See, -3 goes to 3, 1 goes to, is that +1? 3 goes to +1, and 4 goes to 2. Now let me make a T-chart for the other one, and you'll see the difference. Okay, my X values, -3, 1 goes to -2, right? I have another 1 that goes to 1, and I have a 4 going to 4. Do you see the difference between these to decide whether it's a function or not? What is it? Yes. 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 The x's, in order to be a function, the x's cannot repeat. Say it again. In order for this to be a function, the x's cannot repeat, but the y's can. Okay? This is not okay for a function. This is okay. This is your brain on drugs, and this is your brain on normal. Everybody get that? Cannot have a double x, a repeated x value. If you do, it's not a function. Try to remember functions in that way. Now, graphs is probably the easiest way to determine if something's a function. Why, you ask? Why? Why? Because we have something called a vertical line test. And hopefully you weren't sleeping in Algebra 1 because this is pretty easy. What's a vertical line test? Yes, Mark. Here's my graph. And yes, you're right. Pass a vertical line through there. If it intersects at only one point throughout the entire graph, it is a function. So get yourself a straight edge. It's going to be the case where your brain cannot be on drugs. Get myself a vertical straight edge and run it through the graph, and it only intersects the graph at one point. So I indeed have a function. Everybody get that? Are we good? Even the students playing with video games, are you good? Derek? All right. Now, you guys see closed circles here? Okay, these are closed circles. So we have to determine our domain and our range. And when they do that, they use open and close. Well, they use closed circles. And if it's open, if it doesn't include the number, it's not going to have any circle at all. I prefer open circles because it's easier to see. Domain, again, it's my x values. So I'm only going to look at my x-axis. Where does my graph start on the x-axis? -6. Okay, there's the start of my graph. If I look on the x-axis, it starts at -6. There's a closed circle there, so it's a bracket. And then I go to where my graph ends, and on the x-axis it's +6. There's a closed circle there, so it's a bracket. Easy peasy, right? What about my y? Here's my y-axis. What's my lowest y value? -3, right? -3. There's a closed circle, so it's a bracket. And it goes up to +4, closed circle, so it's a bracket. You have Mrs. Adams, this is all review for you. Yeah, I did. Yep. I didn't do interval notation, but number dos. I can't imagine a teacher letting you goof off. All right, I have a line. This particular line has closed circles at the end, right? By the way, is this a function or not? In fact, are there any lines that are not a function? One line that's not a function,
Wait.
except on a vertical line. All lines are functions except a vertical line. Because when you do the vertical line test, see how it intersects at more than one point? In fact, it intersects at infinitely many points. That's the only line that's not a function. All lines are functions except a vertical line. So, this is a yes. A sí, señor. Ah. Okay, domain. Of all the things you have to worry about, you're worried about that.
Now you're bored suicide note.
All right, domain. Where does my graph start on the x-axis?
-7.
-7. It includes it because of the closed circle. And then it goes all the way to 6. Bracket because of the closed circle. Y values. It starts at -1 bracket. And it ends up at 8 bracket. I'm only going to do a few more. What time is this class out? Oh my gosh. All right, I'm going to do a couple more. I'm going to go through these quick, all right? Number 3, is this a function? No, because it doesn't pass my vertical line test. My vertical line intersects the graph at more than one point. This is not a function. What's my domain? Well, it's supposed to be -5. So it's like -4.5. I'm going to put a parenthesis because there's really no closed circle. And then 7 really isn't a closed circle. What's my range? Where does it start? -2 and +2-ish. Now, what about number 4? Remember, those arrowheads make it go forever and ever and ever, right?
Yep.
Okay, is it a function? Yes, it only crosses at one point. Okay, so it's a function. What's my domain? What's the least number that this graph starts at? -infinity, because it's going out here, it's going out to -infinity. Where does it end on my x-axis? +infinity, and they always get parentheses. Where does it start on my y-axis? What is it? What's the lowest y value? 0. Does it include 0? Yes, it does. Where does it end on my y-axis? Infinity, right? I think that gives you enough ammunition to do the practice worksheet. Now, on the practice worksheet, on the back side, the only one that's going to have an included point is number 11. All of these do not have any closed circles, so you're going to have to use parentheses except for number 11. And number 7, that is a function. You have to try to come up with the right answer. Questions, comments, concerns? We'll go